Hey, it's me, Maggie J. Today with a review of the American Horror Story's final episode of Season 1, Game Over. I say Season 1 because I've recently learned they have been okayed for a second season. So I guess we'll be back here again next summer doing it all again. Let's hope this time they get some editors because holy shit, has this been a terrible season. Anyway, this episode, Game Over, starts off with Connie and Dylan, a couple of AHS super fans who are spending the night at the murder house because it's now an Airbnb. Not sure if it's being run by Ghost Michael or Ghost Troy. We don't really see them in this episode. These two tell the cab driver that they've booked a package that ensures they will not sleep a wink, which sounds exciting if you're that kind of person. These two explore the house, and they can't stop reminding the audience that they are deeply familiar with the history of this house and the characters involved in this and every other season of AHS. They keep pointing out ghosts that they recognize and demystifying situations by explaining that this happened before. I'm actually not hating this. These are a couple of super fans living out their super fantasy. Enjoy yourselves, you murder nerds. In the kitchen, they find a welcome card that gives them a sinister warning that they might wind up here forever because they could be murdered here too, which only hypes them up even more. The card refers to them as Violetators, referring to those fans who worship Violet and Tate's relationship, which I am also a fan of, but I thought the term was violators because, what are we, hicks here?
It's gonna be a good day, Tater.
But, whatever. I'll call myself whatever I want.
I'm the king of the world!
A trail of black flower petals leads up the stairs to a bedroom where these two rip each other's clothes off. After their grind session, they find a red ball has rolled into the room and start to wonder, are they really alone in this house? For some reason, Connie can't get off the bed, so Dylan has to literally pull her to her feet. They head back downstairs and see the dead nurse on the stairway and get all excited. They go all the way down to the basement where Connie experiences another instance where it seems like she can't move. But again, Dylan moves her enough and they're off and running again. Deeper into the basement, they see 3 young adult women trapped inside a cage who say that they were trick-or-treating 10 years ago, and when Dr. Ben answered the door, he slammed it in their face without giving them a trick or a treat. But then the door opened back up, like the house let them in, and they were quickly greeted by Ruby and the Rubber Man and the Pighead Man, so they've been trapped here ever since. The girls ask them to help, but you're ghosts trapped in the murder house. You're far beyond hope, honey. The lights flicker and one of them starts screaming about the infantata, and then we see a flash of the Rubber Man behind them, and then things get bloody. Dylan gets a cut on his cheek, and then Connie starts crying like a bitch about how it's too real and we want to get out of here. I thought you were a murder nerd. They run for the stairs, getting sliced and stabbed a couple of more times on the way by the Pigman. Once they're out of the basement, Dylan is immediately shot in the head by Addie, who's the girl next door from season 1. And Connie says, "What are you doing here? You died in the street." So obviously there's some fuckery going on here. But Connie's gonna keep on running. Instead of running out the door, she runs up the stairs. And there she's trapped by a couple of villains from other seasons of AHS, and where she's ultimately killed by Twisty the Clown. Some text appears at the bottom of the screen, and a voiceover announces this event because this is a video game being played by a teenager who's got way too many complaints about this game that his mother is developing. I know she needs the feedback, but does she need that tone, Junior? Actually, Rory is his name, and he does have some good points about what she needs to change in the game. Like, it needs to follow the lore of the house a little bit closer, and it needs to feel more like an adventure and not be so glitchy, because Connie kept getting stuck. Mom is putting a lot of weight on his feedback because, as she tells us, she's quit her job and mortgaged the house and put all of the family's resources into this, so if it's not successful, they're basically toast. But it's not like him liking the game is gonna make it instantly successful. It's really not fair for her to put this kind of pressure on him. He's just a kid trying to play a game. And I feel this kid's frustration when he tells her, I didn't ask you to make a video game about one of my favorite things. You could have just watched it with me. which sounds like he's been begging for attention for a long time. He goes off to stay with his father for a few days, and later on the mom winds up sitting down and watching the show. I don't know if she watched the whole show or just the first season, but by the end of it, she's got a whole list of notes that she's ready to put into her game. So, way to go, girl. Finally getting a horse to put in front of that cart you mortgaged your house for. Speaking of mortgages, Michelle is suddenly at the murder house speaking to the realtor, who is really upfront about the history of this house and that the bank is taking almost any offer that comes by. She's like, would $100,000 work? And he's like, probably. I highly doubt she's got that kind of money, though, considering the sob story she already told the kid. So, what is she up to? Perhaps some real research from a woman who mortgaged her house without ever watching the show she decided to base a whole video game on? Doesn't fit the pattern, but I guess people can start doing the right thing at any time. She visits Rory at his father's house and tells him she's going to a Halloween horror convention. Rory's father overhears this and comes to the door and decides he's going to put in his 2 cents about her whole situation. He says she gets like this whenever she wants to prove a point. She gets all obsessed and doesn't know when to quit. But he doesn't tell her that she should stop working on this video game or that she shouldn't go to this conference. So it kind of feels like he's just talking shit and making the audience more aware of her personality. But I thought that they were doing a good job of establishing that already with just the storylines. We didn't need a big speech from the father about what a piece of shit she is. But if what he says is mostly true, she sounds a bit manic and should probably speak to somebody, but he doesn't suggest to do that either. Rory tells her, "You've got nothing to prove to me, Mom. I already think you're awesome." Which is not the message that I was getting from the conversation that they had about their relationship. But whatever. They say their goodbyes and she's off to the convention. No, wait, she's going to the murder house. P.S. It's Halloween night, so you know what that means. All these ghosts have got somewhere to be. Too preoccupied with their own plans, they barely pay any attention to this human woman who's walking up the sidewalk as they're all leaving. I don't think Michelle understands what's going on because when she reaches the front porch and Ruby is there waiting, she asks if they, meaning the whole group of them, were super fans who came to the murder house on Halloween to role play and such. And Ruby says, "Super fans of what?" Then Scarlett shows up and Ruby is all excited to take her inside and hop in the bath. Even though the deal was that Scarlett was never supposed to step foot inside the house again, but what do we need consistency for? The 2 girls disappear inside and Michelle hesitantly follows but can't seem to find them or anyone else. So she's kind of just wandering around this house explaining herself that she's the new owner. She's wants to get to know people who are into the house so she can feel the vibe. She's developing a video game and her son tells her it's just not feeling right. You know, everything. Lucky for her it's Halloween, because otherwise one of these other ghosts would have come by and killed her a whole long time ago just to get her to shut up. Oops, I spoke too soon. There are some ghosts in this house, namely Dr. Ben Harmon from season 1, who's in his therapy room. Michelle interrupts him and they get to talking and he says, "Did you really buy this house?" And she's like, "No, the deal will never go through. I'm fucking penniless." She just needed to get inside so she could learn more information about the house to better develop this video game that she's making. While they talk, she recognizes who he is and asks why he's there. He says he's in hell. He's paying for his sins. And she's still reacting to this like someone who thinks this is a cosplay. That people just dress up like murder house characters and come hang out inside the house on Halloween night. Well, okay. At the beginning of the conversation, she acts like that. But then all of a sudden, she's opening right up to Ben and starts talking to him like she understands the murder house and that the ghosts are stuck there and that he's one of these ghosts. But there was no like aha moment for me. She just sat forward and suddenly started talking to him like she understood the whole thing. It's just weird. She suggests that maybe he should counsel some of these ghosts to help them get over their human trauma and move on to whatever's next. And he says he already tried that with Tate and he's still as fucked up as ever, so he doesn't have high hopes that it would work for anyone else. Growing frustrated with her trying to psychologize him, he leaves her all alone and Scarlett and Ruby are like immediately right behind her in the therapy room. Michelle again starts with her questions about what it's it's like to be here, and what's the vibe. Ruby gives her an earful, emphasizing how much she enjoys the endless cycle of pain and murder and suffering that she gets to inflict on the ghost of this house. This actress must have taken some lessons in between Rubber Woman number 2 and this episode, because this monologue is miles better than whatever happened at the end of number 2. She still needs a little bit more work on emoting with her face, but at least the voice has a little bit more inflection and confidence, so good job, girl. I guess not all the ghosts decided to stay out all night, because while Ruby is making Michelle uncomfortable, we see the Rubber Man and the Pig Face Man. Then Dr. Ben shows up again, tells her she needs to get the hell out of here. He does her best to help her get to the front door, but between Ruby and her knife and the Rubber Man and the Rubber Woman, Michelle winds up bleeding out from a knife wound at the bottom of the stairs. We flash forward to 1 year later, and Michelle finds Rory in the street on Halloween night. Bro is not happy to see her. He's pissed that she lied about going to the conference and then getting herself killed at the murder house because she couldn't admit that she was never going to be able to finish the video game. He says that house needs to burn to the ground to finally put an end to its cycle of misery and pain, and he will gladly do it. She says, if you do, I'll be gone forever. And he doesn't even care. He's already said his goodbyes to her. It seems pretty set that that's what's going to happen. And then she drops this line, which I think is the dumbest line in this entire series. She's like, you better not do anything to anybody in that house. Those are good people, just trying to live their lives. Hello? Are you new here? What the fuck? Rory agrees that he won't do anything to the house, but that feels like a lie. He rides off into the night, leaving his ghost mom to cry in the street. Eventually, her and all the other ghosts make their way back to the murder house, which, again, that still doesn't make any sense to me. If there's no escape from the house, which is demonstrated by Ruby and Scarlet kissing on the sidewalk in front of the house, and as the sun comes up, we see that Scarlet is standing on the sidewalk alone and Ruby is up in the window of the house looking at her. So the house gets you. Why would you walk your ass back to the house? Come get me, bitch. No, I would not walk back to prison if they were going to come and get me. No way. Tire yourself out. Anyway, here comes Rory with a wheelbarrow full of gas cans, and he starts pouring one all over the grass and sidewalk area. Luckily, he brought multiple jugs. From a window upstairs, Ruby can see what he's doing, and she's on her way to solve the problem. She says she'll stab him and drag him off the property, which is hilarious because we all know that the ghost of the house can't leave the actual house. So unless this boy comes inside, she can't touch him. Enough of the ghosts inside the house are also ready for their nightmares to be over, especially being stuck in this house with Ruby. So they surround her and all stab her, Caesar style, so that she can't leave. I still don't know exactly how dying works in this murder house because she is bleeding on the floor, looking like she's about to die, and she texts Scarlet, help! And apparently Scarlet is only a little bit a ways. I don't know, it only takes Scarlet a couple of minutes to get back to the house after she gets this text. But the next scene, we see Rory outside, and he's pouring more gas on the concrete foundation of this brick house. His mother's asking him, are you sure you want to do this? And he says, of course I do. This place deserves to burn. And then here's Ruby, all back on her feet, stabbing Michelle in the back. Michelle falls to the ground, and Ruby's ready to charge off the porch and fuck this kid up. Then suddenly Dr. Ben is in front of her and the 4 dead girls, and they all just muscle her back into the house. Rory lights a match, and suddenly Scarlet is there, grabbing him by the arm and begging him tearfully to not do this. Instead of using that breath to blow out that meager match, Rory lets it go, and boom, a huge fireball explodes. The ghosts inside seem to be pretty excited for their eternity in the murder house to be over, except for Ruby, of course. She's standing on the porch asking Scarlet to die with her, but Scarlet can't just throw herself into a fire. That's not really how humans work, and she doesn't want to die. So they can only look at each other while the house burns and the weirdest way possible. Rory threw gas all over some brickwork and the sidewalk and the front lawn, but the inside of this house is going up like it was made out of matches. But whatever. The real question here is, will the fire purge the ghost from the house and the land? That's all that really matters at this point. We go through another time jump. This time we're 3 years in the future, and Scarlett pulls up outside these condos built where the murder house used to stand. She takes a tour of one of the condos and asks the realtor, has there been any kind of that activity going on here? He says, no, in the 6 months that tenants have lived inside, there have been no strange occurrences or dead bodies or strange murders. So she says that she will take the last unit, obviously hoping that her lady love will be there. And she is! Oh, yay, there's a happy ending after all. Ruby tells her all the other ghosts wanted to move on, everyone except me, because I knew that you would never leave me forever. So I waited for you. And then they kiss and we pan out the window of the condo. And then like blood splatters start showing up on the screen, but they look kind of like fireworks because Rory just got the good ending in the video game that his mom's been creating. Rory congratulates Michelle on fixing the game and making it way more awesome. While they get ready to leave the house, he asks her, what happened to the ghosts? You don't think any of them escaped into this world, do you? I hope not, she says, and then they go out for lunch. The camera pans down to the floor and we see a red ball roll across the room. And that's the end of the episode. I'm really unsure how to feel about this because it did that thing that I absolutely hate, where they set up an unbelievable world, and when it gets to the point that it's too unbelievable, they say, psych, that was a fake world. We're now in the real world. But then later on, when things get weird again, they're like, psych again, we never left the fake world. All of this has just been an illusion. On top of me not liking these endings because it eventually winds up being a waste of my time, this story doesn't work. There should be a definite point in the show that we can say, oh, that's where Rory started playing the game again. We only get 2 clips of Rory after he leaves Michelle's house. When was he supposed to start playing the game again? Because you don't explain this, the rest of your premise is fucked. And I cannot believe you or anything else is happening in this story. Because there is no way that Michelle could have known about Scarlett and Ruby's love affair while she was developing this game. So how is that the good ending of this video game that she created? Do Scarlett and Ruby actually exist? Or is this all a storyline that Michelle made up for her game? And also, how did the ball get into her house in the real world when it was the murder house in the game world that was burned down and released all the ghosts potentially into that world? So now the ghosts of the murder house that you fake burned down are in Michelle's house here that is nowhere near or connected to the murder house itself that still exists in this world here? Or no, does the murder house not exist in this world here at all because it's a television show that they watch? See how much this doesn't work? It calls into question everything that happened about this season of the murder house, especially. Because there is no discovery point, all of these questions still linger because when did Rory start playing the game again? If it's from the very beginning, it seems stupid as fuck for any developer out there to include a cutscene where their child reams them out about how terrible they are at creating games, at being a mother, at taking care of their responsibilities. Why would you include a scene like that in a video game that you wanted to mass release? Also, if this is a video game you intended on mass releasing, why would you have a discussion with Dr. Ben where you discuss your relationship with your ex-husband? Your son is playing this game. What the hell? Anyway, a disappointing end to what wound up being a disappointing series. But this will not discourage me from reviewing AHS Season 10, which I originally thought this was Season 10, but then I was made aware that there is a Season 10 coming, but it's a 2 storyline, 2 piecers, 2 parts. I don't know. There's aliens in the trailers and it's fucking freaky. So I'll be talking about that. I will rate this episode 1 star. because I really like the premise, and I hope that someday somebody could develop a video game about the murder house that feels like a new adventure. Like, how do you get out this time? How do you get out this time? You know, like, that would be a really cool game. I like it. I like it a lot. But this episode left me very confused at the end of it, and that should never be where a storyteller leaves you. Never. Never. And because I found so many things just wrong and confusing and just baffling, really, I could not give this any higher or lower of a rating. But that is all that I have to say about this episode, so thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking this video and sharing it around a little bit so maybe we can prevent anyone from having to sit through any of these episodes, because they really are just bad. I am making a rankings list that I will post shortly after I post this video. So I hope that you will come back and watch that video and let me know what your favorite and least favorite ones were. Just because I like making list videos, they're very easy. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe out there.